news on inflation front. Wholesale price inflation slows to 4.868% in February compared to 5.05% in January. Market stages a strong intraday rebound as WPI inflation eases to 9-month low. Sensex in 35 points and Nifty ends above 6,500 levels. And the Supreme Court issues notice to Centre and Ranbaxy on a PIL seeking probe against the company for alleged supplying adulterated drugs in the country. Well, hello and welcome to Business Wrap on this pleasant Friday evening here in Delhi. I'm Sidhant Sibal and let's start with what's making news in the Dalal Street. A strong intraday rebound in late trade took the key benchmark indices to positive zone from negative zone. The market sentiment was boosted after the data showed that inflation based on the wholesale price index eased to a 9-month low last month. Sensex closed at 21,810, up 35 points. Nifty closed at 6,504 levels, up 11 points. Shares of L&T scaled 52-week high and L&T Finance Holdings slumped after the offer for sale of shares of L&T Finance Holdings by L&T was oversubscribed. Among auto stocks, M&M scaled a record high. Gainers on the chart were BHEL, L&T, Dr. Reddy's Labs, Cipla, Tata Steel, which were up by between 3 to 2%. Losers on the chart were Wipro, Bharti Airtel, Axis Bank, HDFC Bank, HDFC, which were down by between 3 to 1%. The market breadth indicating the overall health of the market was negative. The market remains closed on Monday on account of Holi. On to global market action, European stocks edged lower today as investors awaited a weekend referendum that may lead to Crimea's succession from Ukraine. Key benchmark indices in France, Germany and UK were off by between 0.25% to 0.72%. On to Asian stocks. Asian stocks also edged lower after at least 4 investment banks lowered forecast for China's 2014 economic expansion. China's Premier Li Keqiang told reporters on Thursday that the nation's 2014 goal of 7.5% economic growth is flexible and some financial products defaults may be unavoidable. Key benchmark indices in China, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Japan and Singapore were off by between 0.25% to 3.3%. Indonesia's Jakarta Composite jumped 3.23%. On to Mint Street, the rupee closed down by 2 paise at 61.19 against the US dollar. On to the big story of the day, the wholesale price inflation. The wholesale price-based inflation eased to a 9-month low in February as food and fuel prices moderated, raising expectations that the RBI would leave interest rates unchanged at its policy review next month. The wholesale price index, long regarded as the main inflation measure, rose 4.68% last month. A 10% drop in wholesale vegetable prices from January helped overall inflation ease for the 3rd straight month. Food inflation dropped to 8.12% in February compared to 8.8% in the previous month as the rate of price rise slowed in almost all items except fruits and milk. There was also a drop in prices of pulses, cereals and wheat. Friday's data comes on the heels of a faster than expected slowdown in consumer inflation, which eased for a 3rd straight month to a 25-month low of 8.1% in February. On to the other big story of the day, the Supreme Court dealt a severe blow to the beleaguered pharma major Ranbaxy by issuing a notice based on a public interest litigation alleging that the company was selling adulterated cholesterol drug in the domestic market. The Apex Court, however, has refused to pass interim order to restrain Ranbaxy from manufacturing drugs. Experts say that if a ban is imposed on the drug, then Ranbaxy is likely to lose 76 crore rupees in revenue. Reacting to the news, the stock of the company crashed 5% in the afternoon trade. The company is already reeling under US FDA imposed restrictions on all its plants. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court today gave a green signal for a CBI probe into alleged misappropriation of funds under the Manrega scheme in 7 districts of Uttar Pradesh. A bench headed by Chief Justice dismissed a batch of petitions, including that of the Uttar Pradesh government, challenging the Allahabad High Court verdict for CBI probe into the alleged irregularities. The Allahabad High Court had on January 31st directed the CBI to investigate the alleged abuse and misappropriation of funds under the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, or the Narega scheme, in Uttar Pradesh. 7 districts, those are Balrampur, Gonda, Mohoba, Sonbhadra, Sant Kabir Nagar, Mirzapur and Kushinagar between 2007 and 2010. The High Court order was passed on a PIL. Well, some corporate news. Former Home Secretary G.K. Pillai today resigned as the chairman of the MCX Stock Exchange as the government and the market regulator SEBI try to assuage stakeholders' concern arising out of the woes coming under the CBI scanner. The resignation came hours ahead of a scheduled board meeting of the MCSX, where the former LIC chairman Thomas Matthew has taken over as the new chairman. SEBI is looking at ways to assuage the concerns of investors, trading members and other stakeholders in the MCSX. Time for a short break. More after this break.
किरण, हैप्पी बर्थडे। हमारा घर।
हैप्पी बर्थडे मम्मा।
तुम्हें कैसे पता?
रोज बोलती थी ना, हमारा घर हमारा घर।
SBI होम लोन्स में हम भी पढ़ लेते हैं आपके मन की बात, इसलिए हमने इंटरेस्ट रेट्स किए हैं कम, खासकर महिलाओं के लिए। SBI होम लोन्स।
हमारा नाव गांव वाले खलिहर रख दिए हैं। दिन भर खाली जो बैठे रहते हैं, बहुत बुरा लगता है। और नौकरी तो कर ले, पर नौकरी है कहाँ? और वो हमसे कहते कि हमको वोट दो। तुमने हमको कहा दिया जो हम तुमको वोट दें? पड़े आए वोट मांगने वाले, युवाओं को बेरोजगार रखने वालों, जनता माफ नहीं करेगी।
चलो हालात बदले, देश की सरकार बदले, भाजपा को वोट दे, अब की बार मोदी सरकार।
Well, tomorrow is the International Consumer Rights Day. This year, the theme chosen by the Consumer International to celebrate the World Consumer Rights Day on March 15 focuses on mobile phone services. The use of mobile phones has risen incredibly and the spread to almost every country in the world. The number of people who use mobile phone services is now nearing 7 billion.
At a crucial time of rapidly growing consumerism across the globe with increasing income levels, safeguarding the interests of consumers has become paramount. There are several instances when a consumer confronts with spurious products. As the world sets to mark the World Consumer Rights Day on 15th March, themed consumer rights in the digital age. At both local and international markets, stakeholders have continued to mount pressure on telecommunication operator to improve on their quality of services. In 2013, it was estimated that 6.8 billion people owned a mobile phone. Considering this achievement, mobile phones are not just convenient but increasingly important tool that help to empower citizens and consumers. The 2014 agenda for World Consumer Rights Day is the mobile operators should provide consumers with access to an affordable and reliable services. Operators should provide consumers with fair contracts explained in clear, complete and accessible language. Operators should also provide consumers with fair and transparent billing. Mobile consumers all across the globe expect that this day brings in more transparency in the mobile operations and they get better services from the mobile operators. Business Bureau, DD News.
Well, the nation is all geared up to celebrate the Festival of Colors Holi. That's on March 17, Monday. But the Festival of Colors, Holi, has changed in recent times. From gulal to balloons, people are opting for environment-friendly ways. Paradigm shift due to market capitalization. Take a look at this report.
Yes, you guessed it right. We are talking about Festival of Colors, Holi. Market is all set to welcome this festival in its own way. Chinese products have taken a toll over Indian markets in terms of gulal, pitchkari and even hair wigs too. Wherever Holi is round the corner, some people are reluctant to play. Skin allergies is a big reason to worry. But we can put smile on your face. Well, you'll be thinking, how? Well, organic colors are now available for you on reasonable prices, which will not affect your skin. Well, talking about Holi and not discussing about sweets, that's impossible. Mouth-watering gujiyas, laddus, burfi. Market is full of such sweeteners for its customers. This festival is a symbol of love, happiness and brotherhood. It also gives a message of humanity to the mankind. Anchal Gulati Gumbar, DD News, Delhi.
Well, in order to clear the extra rush during the season of Holi, Railways has arranged a list of special trains. By enhancing the passenger carrying capacity, Indian Railways tries to cater to the railway passengers. The special trains scheduled will run on a temporary basis. The service will be available to passengers till 31st March 2014. Every year, trains are jam-packed during the festival and holiday seasons, and to tackle this problem, Indian Railways comes up with special trains. Indian Railways aims to meet the peak demand for travel during the Holi season. Well, time for a short break. More after this break.
क्या आप कुछ छुपा तो नहीं रहे? प्रॉपर्टी ट्रांजैक्शन, कैश डिपॉजिट, बिग परचेजेस, परचेज ऑफ शेयर्स, बॉन्ड्स एंड डिबेंचर्स। कुछ छुपाइए नहीं, क्योंकि हम सब जानते हैं। आयकर विभाग के नोटिस का इंतजार मत करिए। भरिए अपना एडवांस टैक्स ईमानदारी से इस महीने की 15 तारीख तक और बनिए भागीदार देश की प्रगति में।
हाँ। मम्मी, आप समझती क्यों नहीं हो? लोग घर से निकलते समय लाइट ऑफ करते हैं और मैं घुसते समय काश मेरे घर वालों को ये बात समझ आ जाए।
बिजली बचाइए, एक घर और रोशन बनाइए।
Well, it was exactly 25 years ago this week that a proposal was sent internally at a research company in Switzerland that was about to change the world. The World Wide Web was invented. The computer used by Tim Berners-Lee to invent the internet goes on display in London to mark the web's 25th anniversary. Let's take a look at the opportunities the World Wide Web has created. It's not much to look at, but this computer changed the world. It was used by Tim Berners-Lee to invent the World Wide Web and has been loaned to London's Science Museum. It's 25 years since the British scientist submitted his first proposal at CERN or CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, and he set up the Web Foundation shortly afterwards.
You take stock, as I hope everyone does today, you realise what an extraordinary force for good it's been, the extent to which it's changed the world, allowed billions of people to create, communicate, collaborate, change the economy, spread democracy. You know, I don't think even Tim thought, as he sat at that computer 25 years ago, that the impact could have been so profound. Martha Fox-Lane advises the British government on all things digital. She co-founded lastminute.com and says the issue of privacy, freedom of speech and free web access are just some of the challenges ahead.
I believe that the next 25 years is going to be exciting. I often wish that I'd been born a bit later. I think people look back on this time at the start of an adventure that we really have no idea how it will play out. But I also believe we shouldn't sleepwalk into it. Creating a high-performing web suitable for any device and system is next stage. 3 out of 5 people around the globe still don't have web access. Challenges facing the web today, and really this is the moment that we've got to
remember what it was that brought us here and defend those principles vehemently.
Burnsley was honored by the Queen for his pioneering work back in 2009. He now oversees web development but isn't making any prediction about where the web will be in another 25 years. Business Bureau, DD News.
Well, from the tech industry to tourism news, Tunisians are banking on tourism to revive their economy. Tunisians hope this year will see the return of tourists to the interior regions as well as the beaches. But all depends on the stability of the country 3 years after a revolution that changed the country and also the Arab world.
3 years after a revolution that triggered the Arab Spring, Tunisia is expecting 2014 to be the year the tourists return. A record 7 million are expected as the country enjoys political stability for the first time since the uprising. A welcome relief to those working in holiday resorts.
I don't have an alternative. I've been working for 17 years on a carriage. What can I do next? I don't have any other skills or profession or a project to launch.
Tunisia has a new constitution and a caretaker government, and elections later this year will be fully democratic. After revolts in nearby Egypt and Libya, the country is seen as a positive role model for a largely unstable region. The tourism industry has a big hill to climb. The number of visitors dropped to around 6 million in 2012. Hotels in Saharan desert town of Tanzour have been relying on Tunisian holiday makers. And many cultural landmarks remain locked up, with shops struggling to survive.
2014 is the year of hope, the year of a new departure, because the last 3 years were very hard. They greatly influenced the tourism sector, and you know that when tourism decreases, it affects directly and rapidly the economy and the social climate in the region.
Tunisia was once a favorite destination for German, British and Russian holidaymakers, along with tourists from its former ruler France. The sector accounts for 8% of the country's GDP, but only the adventurers have been coming in recent years.
The Atlas Mountains, the Tunisians of Tozer and Tatooine and that sort of place are unique, and that's interesting to come and see something of the country and the people. A lot more fun than going to a tourist resort on the beach.
The threat of Islamist militant attacks still casts a shadow over the industry. A suicide bomber killed himself on a popular beach resort at the end of the last year, the first such attack in a decade. Business Bureau, DD News.
Well, how has the week been for the Western markets and economies? The Wall Street suffered its biggest fall since early February as military showmanship in Eastern Europe ahead of a planned Ukraine vote offsets the sign of economic pickup in US.
Concerns outside the US trumped signs of progress inside the US. The S&P 500 had its worst day in 5 weeks, sending stocks to their lowest close since early February. The flashpoints. Ukraine's acting president says the threat of war is rising, with Russia on the border ready to invade. Hours later, US F-16 fighter jets landed in Poland in a sign of support for NATO allies. Goldman Sachs says up to $50 billion in capital has left Russia so far this year. Do the math and that will turn out to be as much as $130 billion by the end of the year, double the outflow last year. Talk of war not the only worry. There was a sharp economic slowdown in China in the first 2 months of the year. Investors fret what that means for the global economy. But as for now, the US economy is looking better. Retail sales rose for the first time in 3 months, coming in slightly ahead of analysts' forecasts. The report is another sign the economy is getting back on its feet after slipping on the ice during a harsh winter. An even better sign, shorter unemployment lines. Weekly jobless claims fell to a fresh 3-month low last week. On Capitol Hill, Federal Reserve Vice Chairman nominee Stanley Fischer told lawmakers current Fed policy to guide the economy to stronger footing is correct and not out of touch with the realities of Main Street.
I think anybody who has studied, and particularly who studied this crisis, knows the cost of unemployment, understands that slow growth is not an abstraction. Slow growth is people not finding jobs. Slow growth is problems for families in meeting their even their food bill, and if one doesn't understand that, one can't seriously be a policy maker.
Speaking of a down market, European stocks fell to 5-week lows, spooked by the same. Business Bureau, DD News.
Well, from the west to the east, China has concluded its annual parliament session, the National People's Congress, with the missing jetliner carrying Chinese passengers casting a shadow over the ceremony. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang addressed journalists at the end of the session, conceding that the economy was proving more challenging this year. He also underlined the government's aggressive tone on corruption.
China's annual parliamentary meeting concluded on Thursday in Beijing. Security was high in and around Tiananmen Square on the final day of the National People's Congress. Chinese President Xi Jinping walked into the main meeting room of Beijing's Great Wall of the People, followed by Chinese Premier Li Keqiang with over 2,900 delegates seated. Chairman of the National People's Congress Standing Committee Zhang Dejiang made closing remarks after rounds of voting for bills and proposals submitted by delegates during the NPC session.
We aim to protect people's rights and interests, protect social fairness and justice, and fully play out an important role for law in the field of governance of country and society. I'm a business delegate. I think for a company, although the domestic and international economic situation has changed a lot, I think as long as the general direction of reforms is unchanged, so long as companies lift its technology standards, transform and improve business modes, also stick to internalization strategy, I think Chinese companies advancing towards world standards would be a no problem.
Delegates said they were confident of reforms in the world's second largest economy. Chinese president, first year in the office, have been marked by a broader crackdown on dissent and civil society, with increased restrictions on the internet and targeting of individual voices and of advocates of minority rights. Despite an official drive against corruption, China has detained at least 15 anti-graft activists in recent months who agitated for officials to disclose their assets, underscoring the limits of the government's tolerance of challenges to its authority. Delegates were also paying attention to the news of the search for a missing Malaysia airline plane. Delegates expressed their deep concern over the passengers and their families.
I think I felt very concerned. I felt indebtedness as of my own family were on board the flight. I really hope I watch TV, read news every single day. I hope they can find out where they are as soon as possible.
Majority of the 239 people on board the flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing were Chinese. The massive international search effort is on its 6th day, but there has been no sign of the jetliner. Business Bureau, TT News.
Well, back home, Congress leader and Commerce Minister Anand Sharma has criticized Modi's economic vision towards the country. Addressing a press conference in New Delhi, Anand Sharma said there is nothing new in Modi's economic perspective.
We are the oldest and the largest pan-Indian political movement of this country. We are strong in our mind, we are strong when it comes to facts, we are strong when it comes to our delivery mechanisms, and those who have been doing it, they must get this message clear. We will be civilized because that's our commitment, but they will get it back in full measure. I am repeating, the Congress is ready for battle. We are the last ones to vacate the space for our opponents.
Well, Anand Sharma also said that Congress is a pan-Indian party and is ready for the battle in coming elections. He was talking to the media in New Delhi. Well, on to our next story. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is in London for key talks on Ukraine with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov. And as a disputed referendum in Crimea looms on Sunday, Kerry is expected to warn Lavrov that the referendum and Russia's military intervention in Crimea could trigger concerted US and EU sanctions. Meanwhile, US President Barack Obama held face-to-face talks with the new Ukrainian Prime Minister in the Oval Office and said, "We will stand with Ukraine."
President Barack Obama puts out a stern warning to Russia. He said that the West will be forced to apply a cost to Moscow if it fails to change course with its involvement in Ukraine. Obama held talks with Ukrainian Prime Minister at the White House on Wednesday, searching for diplomatic leverage to force Russian President Vladimir Putin to loosen his military grip on Crimea.
We will continue to say to the Russian government that If it continues on the path that it is on, then not only us, but the international community, the European Union and others will be forced to apply a cost to Russia's violations of international law and its encroachments on Ukraine. There's another path available, and we hope that President Putin is willing to seize that path.
The Ukrainian Prime Minister had this to say.
Mr. President, it's all about the freedom.
And sent another message to Putin to back down and calm down.
Mr. Putin, tear down this wall, the wall of war, intimidation, and military aggression. Let's stop. Let's calm down.
This comes as election workers assemble polling station in Crimea, and Ukraine's military holds military drills in the southern part of the country, all in the preparation of the March 16th referendum vote on joining Russia, when the fate of Crimea will be determined. Business Bureau, DD News.
So everyone will be watching that big referendum in Crimea, whether the referendum goes on and joins Russia. Well, time for the recap of the top business stories of the day. Good news on the inflation front. Wholesale price inflation slows to 4.68% in February compared to 5.05% in January. Markets stage a strong intraday rebound as WPI inflation eases to 9-month low. Sensex gains 35 points. Nifty ends above the psychological 6,500 levels. And the Supreme Court issues notice to the Centre and Ranbaxy on a PIL seeking probe against the company for allegedly supplying adulterated drugs in the country. Well, feedback is essential source of improvement. If you have any query or suggestion, please do write to us at teamddbiz@gmail.com. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Have a happy, holy weekend. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.